Bathtubs and Thunderous Flatulence from The Miller's Tale. There's a saying, the only things guaranteed in life is death and taxes. And I'm not old enough to pay taxes, so I guess we are stuck with death. We are talking about depth analysis. Now, in order to fully get in character to fully feel this depth, I want everyone to close their eyes and imagine themselves in Oxford, England, 12th century. This is a space without depth, and the only thing people do is listen to the church and walk around telling stories to each other from memory. It's such a simple life, without TikTok, without celebrity drama, that allows these simple people to have an undisturbed, strong relationship with God. Now, what is God? Is it a human being? A void thing? A metaphor in a story? To many, religion and God represents living with values that maintain a good moral soul and living an honest life. That makes readers of The Miller's Tale question, what does the satirized view of religion through the deception in The Miller's Tale reveal about the culture in Britain? On the other hand, we see The Miller's Tale take an ironic spin on religion, seen through Nicholas's lie, which showcases deception and irrational decisions, revealing the lack of emphasis on morality in British culture. First, the lack of morality in this culture can be seen in the way Chaucer depicts religious belief. Religion can provide a basis for moral righteousness and formal unity. In the Canterbury Tales, we see huge emphasis on religion, as it is almost seen as a governing part of society's life. It is also seen as a symbol of hope and truth, as by living an honest life, you get closer to being with God and joining Him in heaven. In The Miller's Tale, we see this meaning of truth flipped around as Alison uses religion to fool John. Nicholas takes advantage of John's strong faith, informing him about a vision he had of the Great Flood coming to wipe out humanity again. John is completely convinced that Nicholas received a message from God and spent many hours taking precautions to survive the Second Great Flood. With his own hands, he then makes ladders 3 for climbing up the uprights and rungs up to the beams. There where the tubs were there hung, with enough food, the trough and tubs he stocked, with bread and cheese and good ale in a crock, sufficing enough to last a day. Yeah, what I meant by that was like, I made 3 bathtubs to protect me and Allison and Nicholas from the Great Flood.
In the meantime, John and Allison are together doing things that John wouldn't approve of. His strong ties to religion reveal his foolishness as he thinks more with his heart rather than with his head. Ethan Smiley discusses this in his essay, pointing out that from John's perspective, however, Nicholas truly has God-given knowledge, albeit a dangerous form of it, even though Nicholas's ultimate purpose, of course, is adultery. Chaucer illustrates this reverse meaning of religion to emphasize the lack of morality found in British culture during this time period, at least through the eyes of the miller. Additionally, the meaning of religion is twisted again at the end of the tale. When Absalom brands Nicholas's behind, Nicholas cries for water. This awakes John, who's sleeping in a bathtub. Believing the second flood has finally arrived, he gets into position and cuts the rope connecting the tub to the tree with an axe. John falls from the top of the house in a bathtub, completely convinced of the second floor from God. This noise and commotion attracts other townspeople, to whom the miller attempts to explain this vision from God. However, Nicholas and Allison said to every man that he was mad. They denied the cruel trick they played on him of a fake flood, instead convincing the town that he had so great a fear of Noah's flood that he had bought kneading tubs for them and had them hanging from the roof. That comes from The Miller's Tale. John acts so foolishly that readers can't even pity him. Frederick Biggs gives helpful insight to the reader how John's insane experience may well model our own, as we are invited to laugh at this fantasy. The townspeople believe them and laugh at John. Religion is typically associated with truth, and people who are religious are often regarded as wise, knowledgeable, and trustworthy. However, the opposite occurs here, as John's strong faith causes him to fully buy into Nicholas's lie, which ends up with him being labeled as crazy for saying such things. This adds to the recurring theme of deception through religion and the overall lack of morality in the culture at the time.
Next, we can see how the temptations of lust between Allison and Nicholas drive them to make irrational decisions, which further reveals the lack of morality found in the culture at this time. This power of lust first spurs them to formulate an elaborate plot in order to deceive John to sleep together. Despite living in a religious society, the temptation of sin and lust overcame Nicholas and Allison and led them to the point of repeated adultery. Greg Walker discusses this in his article, describing the drive for intimacy and pleasure they have, saying, "Hence the reader is assumed to be, indeed is constructed as, mature enough to understand and accept the nature of the pleasures that sex offers. This allows the readers to see why Nick does what he does and why an entire plan is formulated to deceive John." Further, Walker mentions how Chaucer's description of the adulterous melody that Nicholas the scholar and Allison enjoyed together in John the Carpenter's bed is thus not euphemistic. This pleasure is the driving force behind the deception of John, which creates the conflict found in the tale. It is this conflict that Chaucer uses to depict the lack of righteousness found in Britain at this time. Lust didn't just drive Nicholas and Allison to make irrational decisions. Absalom chose violence when he was denied by Allison. Greg Walker describes Absalom as arriving too late to any situation to have any positive effect on events. Despite the two men chasing Allison, Walker believes that it is John the Carpenter who Nicholas must defeat in order to enjoy Allison, not Absalom. The author is convinced that if he had gotten there earlier, he stood no chance due to Absalom's feminine appearance and manners. Describing Absalom's body as that of a child, his clothes are that of an infant dressed prim, unthreading pastel colors. His movements are awkward, his voice is that of a high soprano. Taken together, these features serve to deny his masculinity. Walker finally characterizes Absalom's issue being his lack of access to female experience and his inability to empathize with the women he pursues. That's a lot of depth. Diving deep into the characterization found in the Miller's Tale revealed a lack of morality found in society during this time period. We see this first through the ironic interpretation of religion, as deception becomes the new meaning. This is then reinforced by the strong influence of lust and fleshly desires, which drives repeated adultery and physical violence. Thank you.